everybody, and welcome to Chatting with the Chat, brought to you by Mojo Media. I'm your host, Keith the Chat Peterson. We've got a great podcast going here today. COVID's got everybody stuck indoors. I'm lucky enough I get to keep going to work. My wife's been at home for a month with the kids, not at school. I think she's going a little crazy. That doesn't mean we can't talk a little racing. We had the opportunity to have a conversation with Kevin Ness at Mission Raceway. We'll also get the opportunity to chat with a few racers and one of our great sponsors, the West Coast Pro Modifieds. Speaking of sponsors, let's pay some bills and hear from one now.
There's only one place to get the best vaping supplies in Maple Ridge, BC, and that's HVS, Haney Vape Supply. The best way to quit smoking. Visit Haney Vape Supply on Facebook or call 604-467-6688. Haney Vape Supply.
Here's a great conversation I was able to have with Kevin Ness from Mission Raceway. So, all right, we got Kevin Ness with Mission Raceway here on the podcast joining us. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, Keith. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Awesome, Kevin. Hey, with the best case scenario, what might Mission Raceway's schedule look like for its major events this year?
I think it could be fairly interesting to see. I think we'd have a lot of events jam-packed into a short time frame for sure. Hopefully, obviously, by the time Smoke Fire Thunder rolls around, maybe the borders open and some guys can get over and we can get the jet cars and the wheel standers and all those guys over too. It would be really nice to have that event go. SMS K-Rents has been a wonderful sponsor for us for a long time now, and obviously it's a fan favorite event around the town and locally and everywhere. I think everybody likes racing at it. It was a pretty cool feeling last year. I know I had a lot of racers come up and say, hey, that was cool to look out there and see almost 3,000 people in the stands on Saturday night while I'm going to make my pass. Like, that was awesome. So it's an awesome feeling to have, and I think everybody is excited. So I'm hoping that event can get off for sure. I think that we would end up moving Door Wars to sometime in September. Obviously, the Lordco Divisional BC Nationals is already moved to third weekend of September, and we're going to be making a few changes around to obviously our summit schedule and trying to add in as much stuff, along with maybe hopefully even getting a drifting event in there somewhere. We'll have to see how things work out and how things go. It's going to be interesting.
How is this current situation affecting businesses around Mission and the surrounding area?
I think that definitely a lot of the businesses around us and everywhere are kind of feeling affected right now. Definitely are some of our sponsors like Lordco. I've been to their stores, I've chatted with the managers and chatted with Anna and the people there, and they're doing their best job. And I think that they're still doing okay business-wise, and they've definitely made some changes to do what they can to help flatten the curve and do a good job of what everybody's trying to accomplish. I think it's been hard for restaurants, obviously, and hotels, and the Best Western and Mission has probably felt it, definitely, and I know any restaurant has, is it's just been tough.
All right, so when we finally do get racing at Mission in 2020, what kind of improvements or changes might we expect to see?
Well, we obviously redid the burnout boxes. We put that on Facebook. So I think a lot of people have seen that up on social media. So that's nice, new burnout boxes, a little bit of pavement repair around them and stuff. We hopefully will have new dial-in boards for the bracket guys. I know that doesn't mean anything for the Pro-Mod guys, but it's exciting for a lot of the guys that regularly race at our track. We're just doing a lot of other improvements to the facility, cleaning up, painting a lot of things, changing some color schemes, and trying to make it nicer. Dave Strahl did a wonderful job on the second floor of the timing tower. They replaced the carpet and new cabinets and changed everything around, and it looks awesome up there. And then our washrooms in the tower are getting a long overhaul, which is nice too. So new doors, new faucets, new floor, new everything, new toilet. So good for the girls in the tower that work in there every day, and the VIP suite upstairs and everything. So I'm happy for that.
Okay, well, in the West Coast Pro Mods, the quarter mile versus eighth mile debate rages on. What are your thoughts from a track standpoint?
From a track standpoint, I don't really know where we're at on it. We obviously like 8th mile racing. We have a few classes now that are 8th mile. We're probably going to try and do some 8th mile cash bash stuff at our bigger events that aren't actually Summit ET races going forward, and see if it gets more interest or how the racers feel about it. I like 8th mile personally a lot. I think it's fun. I think less guys blow up their stuff and the program can run a hair faster, and I just think it's good, right? As a personal thing, just because I've raced, and I I enjoy racing the 8th mile more than I do enjoy racing the quarter mile, but that's not the same for everybody. And obviously there's certain things like Pro Mod that I think the competitive of the class would be much better if it was run 8th mile. And I think it could create a really interesting series. I think it could create better parity. I think guys with, lower budget teams would have a really good chance of competing. And I think it makes for way more exciting and closer racing, hands down. But as just a fan who doesn't actually know that much about racing, I do agree that the 5-second passes and the huge mile an hour, it's cool to see. You lose that with the 8th mile. You don't get it, right? It doesn't have that same effect as far as that does. So it's a toss-up. I mean, I think a lot of the racers would enjoy it better, but I think that at the end of the day, a lot of the fans at the events that you guys run at would probably enjoy it quarter mile better too. It's tough to say.
Okay, so when the West Coast Pro Mods show up at Mission Raceway, who do you like watching race? And who would you like to see match up come 2020?
And Pro Mod, I definitely would have to say that Jordan Lazic in that crazy Bel Air, that thing is super cool looking and it's loud and rowdy and he drives it like a crazy person and it's fun to watch go down the track and it puts up some serious times. One of my favorite cars to see is Keith Garecki's. It's absolutely just beautiful. It's a gorgeous car. He's out there grinding. He's been doing it for a long time. I think it's cool to see him out there. I love seeing the car and I love seeing when they make good progress. But I would love to see a rematch on that Lazic-Garecki final last year. And I just think it'd be awesome to see again, being that they've been close families for a long time and raced against each other for a long time. And there's a little bit of a rivalry, but a lot of a friendship there too. And it's cool to see.
And what about the 10.5 and 275s? Who do you want to see race this year in 2020?
Ooh, Ken Sahota versus Steve Nicholson never gets old. Some nitrous on nitrous hate crime. I love it. You got the big, bad 5.3, and then you got Ken, who's like the most meticulous, smartest, really well-run program that just gets down consistently and does it very well. I like it. I want to see it. I think we got a snippet of it last year, so I'd like to see that again. I do think that Nick Duda is going to put a 3 up on the scoreboard with that thing, and that's just absolutely insane with the combo he has. And, it's really nothing crazy special, and he'll be the first to tell you that it doesn't even have shaft mount rockers. It still has normal style roller rockers on it, and he's done a killer job with it. So I think it's going to be cool. I think he's going to put a 399 or faster up there, and that's going to be wicked to see for him, for everybody, really. 275, definitely. There's a lot of interesting internet drama going on right now with 275. Some inner Alberta hate on hate crime, and it's been fantastic fun to watch, fantastic fun to read on Facebook, and everybody loves getting in on it. So it's been good, and I think it'd be really cool to see Justin Collins lined up against Neil Richards, and Justin's new combo is hopefully pretty badass, and Dan Rodrigue and Neil would be great race again. They're always good to see race each other. Two of the most unaerodynamic, squarest looking cars out there. They both run hard, so it's always a good race.
Awesome. Well, I know the West Coast Pro Mods are looking forward and chomping at the bit to get down to Mission Raceway. I appreciate you spending some time with us today, and we look forward to showing up there sometime in late August or early September.
We're looking forward to having you guys there. We're looking forward to seeing some cars go down the track and everybody's faces, and hopefully maybe even a possibility of spectators in the stands and kids enjoying it. It's something that makes it as fun as it is, for sure. We can't wait to be open again. We can't wait to see everybody.
All right, well, we'll see you there, Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks.
Again, thank you to Kevin Ness for spending some time chatting with the chap. I've been spending time talking with some of the other tracks about schedule. Obviously, things are difficult to predict right now, but it looks like the West Coast Pro Modifieds will be getting some kind of racing in come September if everything keeps going. Could possibly even see something in August. Next person I had a chance to talk with was Mike Ferrier with Mojo Media. But before we do, let's hear another great Mojo Media ad done by Mike Ferrier himself.
Will your business survive this financial crisis? Staying home and social distancing are of paramount importance during this time. That's why you need social media advertising. Minimize financial losses and maximize your business income and exposure with online advertising. Vehicles break down and need repairs. Home delivery services are very important. Emergency plumbing and heating, retail outlets, automotive supply, home repairs. The world needs to know that you you are still operating and available to help them in their time of need. Mojo Media will create custom professional advertisements and promotions for all your social media pages. You will still be able to provide your services and products to all your potential customers safely. For all your social media advertising needs, Mojo Media can provide you with affordable professional advertising videos to help your business and the community stay safely afloat. Message Mike Ferrier from Mojo Media today.
We got Mike Ferrier chatting with the chap here on the line with Mojo Media. Hey, Mike, back in September when you showed up at Castro Raceway, was it as impressive as I told you it was going to be?
You know what? It was more impressive than what you mentioned. I mean, you're very passionate about racing and everything. For somebody who's not really, a racing guy, doesn't know much about cars, I say admittedly and ashamedly, but that's okay. I still can appreciate fast cars and good times. And to be there sort of up front and personal was very cool. I mean, to meet the drivers, they're such cool guys. You know, they've got a lot of knowledge, and I mean, it was an all-around great time. But then to actually be at the track, to hear the cars, to hear those motors roaring and tearing down the track, it was just awesome. I loved it. I was like addicted right away. Awesome. So I loved it, Keith. Yeah, it was great. Thanks for the invite too. Had a great time.
Awesome. Well, we want to highlight some things about Mojo Media here on the podcast today.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I got some questions for you.
Absolutely.
What kind of work does Mojo Media do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everything from video work to voiceover, to script writing, to social media management, business strategy, creative strategy for advertising campaigns. Really, Mojo is just a help for businesses, corporations that are trying to reach their target markets. So I use a lot of video, voiceover, and social media to help them reach their target markets, to help it with their branding and get their name out there, get their service out there. This whole online advertising has taken the world by storm. We all know that, but it's like, well, how do I do it? How do I jump in there? How can my business begin to prosper online? And so that's sort of what I love to do, is sort of be the guy, because business owners don't have a lot of time, let alone to grow their social media. So really, we're a small agency that helps people with their advertising needs.
Awesome. And this isn't just something that you started last year just because it was something you're passionate about. You've had a long career in the advertising industry. Tell us about where you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always loved advertising. Now, of course, growing up, you're watching TV and you see these commercials come on TV, and well, most people hate commercials, and so, but you get the odd one that's funny, that's interesting, that connects with you. I always enjoyed those specific ads and commercials that made me laugh, that really grabbed my attention, or I thought was really funny and witty and creative. Advertising and clever advertising. And I've always been a creative person. And when computers came along, I used to love going on computers and designing things. And I loved it. I was just like a fish in water. And ever since then, I wanted to be in advertising. And in 2009, I took that dream to a new level. I went to college. I went to Mohawk College in Hamilton, Ontario, and immersed myself in a creative advertising course. And I did quite well with it. I won a couple of awards, not to toot my own horn, but I mean, it's nice to receive some awards. And so I spent 3 years learning all facets of advertising, everything from television, newspaper, radio, print, magazine, billboard, online marketing, social media marketing, all these things. That was in 2009 to 2012. And then right out of the gate, I ended up at a radio station, and I was creating ads for radio and doing social media and all these things. And of course, being on the radio as well, which is a huge media platform as well. So it's something that I've always been passionate about, and decided to spread my wings and create Mojo Media, and it's been a great adventure so far.
Awesome. Hey Mike, how can Mojo Media help businesses get through this current economic crisis with the coronavirus and such?
As you know, we're all homebound. We're bound at home, most of us anyways, unless you're an essential business or service at this point. And so, of course, that brings up the dilemma. Well, how do I still operate? How do I reach new clients? How do I inform my current clients that I've already got? How do I serve them if I can't leave the house? Well, that's where online advertising comes into play. And I mean, it's a great way to stay connected to your clients and customers. It's a great way to keep up with your brand image, stay sort of, in the loop with things, and people know that you haven't closed your doors. You're still operating to the best of your ability and continue to deliver your products and your services and whatnot. So it's just a great way to keep people informed and updated with what's going on with your business, and to attract new potential business and clients.
So when you look at the West Coast Pro Modifieds and the direction that they're going with internet advertising with the help of Mojo Media, what kinds of opportunities can you see for companies that want to get involved with our sport?
If you break it down to the essentials, I mean, it's an automotive industry, really. And I mean, the automotive industry, makes billions of dollars each year. There's so many different services. And I mean, what a great stepping stone for your business to reach new audiences across the country. I mean, you've got racers from BC and Alberta, and I think Saskatchewan, is that right?
South of the border.
International, so it's a great way to bring people together from all over the country, all over the states, and reach a new market segment, and at the same time support this awesome endeavor. Keep West Coast Pro Modified racing going. It's a really awesome entertainment medium, and I think it's a great idea to get in on the ground floor while the West Coast Pro Modifieds is acquiring sponsors. I mean, how great is it to say that, we sponsor the West Coast Pro Modifieds, and we're helping to keep this going. We're helping to keep it growing, and it's really giving back to the community in a lot of ways as well. It gives your business good exposure by advertising with West Coast Pro Mods and Mojo Media, but it keeps you connected. It keeps you growing your audience. I think it's good to get in on the ground floor and become some of the beginning sponsors to help watch this awesome organization grow.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for joining us here today, and thank you for Mojo Media for helping the West Coast Pro Mods get a more professional image with our sponsors and such, getting their names out there, and we just hope that Mojo Media can continue to get their name out there and continue to grow as well.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us on the call today. So thank you, Mike Ferrier, for joining us on Chatting with the Chap, and thank you to all the rest of the sponsors who have already committed to the West Coast Pro Modifieds here in 2020, and I know there are many more who are waiting for our race season to get started, so thank you to them as well. Had the opportunity to chat with Dave Kowalski, find out about his struggles in 2019, and hear what his plans are for 2020. But before we talk to Dave, let's hear from our Pro Boost sponsor, Daco Ventures.
Daco Ventures, providing the best aquadam installations, creek diversions, and river crossings in Alberta and BC. Providing and maintaining water diversion, frack out equipment, aquadam supply, and installations for any size project. Visit Daco Ventures online, DAKOWLTD.com.
So we got Dave Kowalski on the podcast here today. Welcome.
Hey, Keith. Thanks.
First thing I got to say is I got to thank you and Daco Ventures for coming on board as a sponsor for the Pro Boost class here this year. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. It's good to be part of it that way.
So we're here to actually chat more about the race car and the Dave Kowalski racing team. You're fairly new to the Pro Mod division, so tell us a little bit about the history of Dave Kowalski and how he got started in racing.
Well, it was back in the beginning of the 90s. I was a street racer as a kid. So I kind of got off the street there. I had just a street car, my old Mustang, and me and some friends, we took it to a local track here in Fort St. John. And we thought we were, Mr. Hotshot and everything else. And then we seen the first car with actual real slicks on it, and we realized we were nobody at that point, right? So we got into the racing there and did good. My mom and dad had actually been a big part of it for a long time. After our first weekend, my dad suggested that we build a car.
So we got on a hunt and we found a 71 Vega in the backyard, just as a street car. And we took that and front halved it, then back halved it, and so forth, and got into the bracket racing locally that way. We shared that car for over 20 years. I would race one weekend, Dad would race the next weekend. We did that for a long time. We didn't win a lot, but we just had a whole lot of fun doing. That's what it was all about for us, right? And in about 2014, I had a previous company that I sold, and that's when I had the Corvette built. That's a 2015 Rick Jones Stingray. That's actually the first C7 Corvette that's been built ever as a race car. A lot of people don't realize that. We had to wait 4 to 5 months just to get the body. Then once we had the body, we could build the chassis inside of that. There was never a platform for that chassis yet, right? So that was the very first one. We built that as a top sportsman car, was the idea. Mike Lucas was a big influence there as well. I raced with him for bracket racing, right from the very beginning. And he got into the top sportsman and seeing what he was doing, and we thought that would be cool to get into. So we built it as a 7.0 car. Then we went to Edmonton, and the Pro Mod guys were shorter cars. So they invited us to join the class. So we did, and we were able to run 650s, 640s, 630s, blowing stuff up. And from then, it was just pretty much hooked.
Awesome. So you mentioned Mike Lucas and helping you get into the top sportsman ranks. Between Mike Lucas, who else has helped you along the way? You mentioned your mom and dad getting you into it when you were younger, and then Mike Lucas as you got through the top sportsman ranks. But who else has helped you get to a pro mod level?
To get to the pro mod level, a big part has been Jay Sverretson from JS Power Sports down in Mission. He built the motor for me. He actually, when we were in Edmonton, we were struggling to get the car to go into the 650s, and I would even just take my spark plugs over to him because I was still learning how to tune my fuel system. And he was giving me pointers. He would come over and help me out, and that's where our relationship started. And he was a big push into that as well too. My dad was a big part of the pro mod thing because that's always been a class that he's found really intrigued by. Even to this day, when we're working on the car in the pits, and he'll say, "I can't believe I still get to work on a Hemi." So to me, that's really cool. It really hits home, right? Because my whole race team, it's been my mom and my dad, and my kids from the beginning. I've got some close friends, Matt Dome, Colin Gessner, their spouses, my kids. Devin's a big part of it too. But we've always just been friends and family as a team. So it's been really good. So it hits home that way too, right? So it's good.
All right. So you mentioned the Rick Jones 2015 Corvette, the first one off the assembly line. Tell us a few more features about that car.
Well, when we started with that car, as a top sportsman, I first went and seen Rick, and we're building the car as a top sportsman as a single frame rail chassis. Then when I went down to fit myself for the chassis, I'm looking in the car, and I had said, "Do you double frame rail it?" And he says, "Yes, we did. We built as a Pro Mod chassis." And I says, "Well, why would you build as a Pro Mod chassis if I'm planning on running top sportsman?" He says, "Well, Dave," he says, "I've known you just for a little bit now." He says, "I know you. You're going to need it." And you know what? He was dead right. We started with a conventional big block Chevy, and the thing, I did an interview with Rick as well that same weekend because that was the first chassis that was ever built as that car. So we waited for the body, and we built a really cool car, and it worked right out of the box. The chassis setup from Rick Jones was second to none. Now, when we picked the car up, I talked to Rick Jr. We went to Mission, and right out of the trailer, we were 664 at 205, doing licensing passes straight as an arrow. To this day, we still have not touched the suspension setup in the car. We made wheelie bar adjustments, and that was absolutely it. Now we've powered it up since from the conventional big block that was pushing a couple thousand horsepower. Now the car is capable of into the 570s, which we've only hit 6.0 so far. Our goal is to dig deeper into the 5s.
So speaking of where you're headed, last year you were headed for that 5 many times with great short numbers in that car, but it seemed like 2019 became quite a struggle year for the Dayco Ventures Corvette. Tell us a little bit about the struggles in 2019.
Yeah, we had a lot of struggles, but the struggles were simple things that just made big problems. The first thing we did was we changed the transmission that winter. We went to the Liberty 5-speed, and then we went to Vegas, and we couldn't get it to shift out of 4th gear into 5th gear. It was just a program issue. After that, we've had numerous backfire issues. The first one was because the car, when it shifted, it got into a bounce, and I didn't lift, and it just, the slosh, it aerated the fuel, caused a backfire. So then it blew the front end of the car off. It destroyed the front end. Then we got it back together. Then we made a next pass again, and the same thing. We blew it again. Not because of bounce, but now because the boost reference fitting had been compromised from the explosion before. We didn't realize the fitting broke, dropped our fuel pressure, and then it leaned out, then it misfired again. So it's been really simple, few little things. In the end, unfortunately, we threw a couple of rods out of it. We learned a lot about the little things to do. We were in Vegas, and we had wheelie bar adjustments I had backwards, little things, right? So we were getting the big things done, and our maintenance program was good, but it was just the little things that were sneaking up on us. It was like we don't say that we're going to do 5 seconds this year. We've always been saying, this is our year. We're going to nail it this year. We're going to nail it. Every time we say that, karma says, no, not this time. So this next year, this season, we're going to pull it back a little bit, creep up on a little bit slower pace. I mean, we've run 390s in the 8th mile, but we still have yet to run a sub 6 second in a quarter.
You talked about not wanting to call out some numbers, so I won't ask you to do that. But if and when this COVID-19 thing lets us get back racing again, maybe in 2020, if not in 2021, what are the goals of the Dayco Ventures Corvette?
Well, the goals, I guess, are different in a sense what I tell my team as versus what I say inside myself. Inside myself, I say, we're nailing 570. But for the guys, we're going to get through the year. We want to get into the 590s and just not have these little struggles anymore. Like, we work really well together. We're orchestrated very well. Everybody gets along good. We have no tension in our pits. Actually, it's a pile of fun. Even though we've had all these little struggles and issues, everybody still pulls together. I mean, we're to the point we're able to pull the motor down, replace pistons, and be up and running again in 3 hours' time. And that's generally with myself, my dad, and my other crew guy, Matt Doan. We don't even hardly talk in the pits when things like that happen. We just now know it has to be done, and we're just getting a system together now, so we keep getting better and better as it goes. So things will get better for us for sure, without a doubt, and we'll be rewarded with the good passes and everything else, and it'll be good.
So when those good passes do start to come, Dave, just last question, who do you want to line up against?
Well, the guy to beat, I guess, for Joe Delahay's been in my head. I'd like to run him and beat him in the end. The guy that I really, really want to beat would be Jay Sverreson. He's been such a big influence. He's got a lot of experience. He's been doing it for a lot of time. He's also been very involved in building a fuel system in my engine. And he's as passionate about my car running into the 5s as I am, if not more, just about. So it'd be nothing better than just to line up with him and say, here you go. They build your stuff, then to beat him, right?
Right on, Dave. Well, thanks for chatting with the chap. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anyone else you want to thank before I let you go?
There's a lot of people. I mean, we've been to Edmonton, Boise, Prince George, Seattle, Vegas. Want to go to Rimby. Mission's been big. There's support everywhere we go. Try to nail it down to the single people or a couple of people. I just want everybody to know that when we go out, we really appreciate everybody that comes out, makes everything happen. And a big part for us is the fans that come to the pits. That's huge for us. People come in, they are hesitant sometimes to come in your pits and want to look because they figure they want to get in your way. We welcome for people to come and see. I mean, we're very fortunate to race at the level we do. So to bring kids in, it's really good.
Awesome, Dave. Well, thanks again for chatting with the chap, and hopefully we will see you sometime in 2020 at the racetrack.
Absolutely. Us as well. Thanks, Keith.
Well, I know Dave Kowalski is one of Richard's favorite racers. He's probably the biggest reason Richard came up with that Just Send It award. Dave Kowalski's always one to just send it. So we look forward to Dave Kowalski doing his thing in 2020. Up next, we change gears to some giggle gas. Tom Mehedin didn't get much racing in 2019, but he's been a racer in Pro Modified for many years, and we had a chance to chat with him about that and his beautiful Beretta. But before we hear from Tom, let's hear from our Pro Nitrous sponsor for 2020.
Join Team Urlacher in the 2020 West Coast Pro Modifieds racing season. Advertise on one of the fastest Pro Nitrous cars in Alberta. Be seen and heard. Advertise with Team Urlacher Motorsports. It's a sure win. The 2020 Pro Nitrous class is sponsored by Urlacher Motorsports. Visit dadsgoneracing.com.
So we got Tom Mehedin on the line here, chatting with the chap. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to do a bit of an interview with you and find out more about Mehedin Racing. First question, tell us more about the Mehedin Racing in the early days and some more memorable moments that you've had throughout your career so far.
Well, Keith, I go back a long ways here. I'm old, Well, it all started, this last episode all started in 1994. We had to get our businesses and that off the ground. I'd sold all my toys prior to that. And of course, we had to buy a house and So on in 1994, we finally were able to look at purchasing a race car. And I looked for, probably a year before we ultimately bought the Beretta that we still have actually. The car was built by Brad Hadman. It was built for pro stock for a gentleman by the name of J.R. Carr. He raced it about 20 passes, and we were fortunate enough to purchase it. And we brought it home. We ran that car for 1 year, half a season actually, in Super Pro. The following year, we went into Super Comp. We raced it for 2 years in Super Comp, and then we went to the inaugural season for the Canada West Door Slammers. We ran that for 1 year, and then ultimately turned it into a pro mod.
All right, tell us a little more about the Beretta, what it's been since it was built in 1994.
Well, when we first purchased it, Keith had a 468 Ryer Morrison, a Super 468, and that was kind of cool to us because Ryer Morrison engine builders were my heroes at the time, and Lee Shepherd is my hero and still is my hero. So to have a Ryer Morrison engine under the hood was kind of cool. And we ran that configuration for 2 years. We've actually had 7 or 8 different engine transmission combinations in the car. And we kept stepping up from the 468. I think we went to a 615. And then that engine was the one that was actually too powerful for the Super Comp series. And Kath and I, driving back from Mission, decided that we either had to take some power out of the car to run an index class or step up harder. So we went from the 615 to a 632 on alcohol. And then we went to a 632 on nitrous. And then we went to a 706 on nitrous and a 712 on nitrous to our current 801 combination.
Through the years, Elite Belts became part of the Mahedin Racing team. It's a strong supporter of your operation. Tell us more about Elite Belts.
Well, again, dealing with the states for most of the racing products that all of us have to purchase, and I'm sure everyone knows where I'm coming with this. You know, crossing the border, the duty, the taxes, the dollar exchange, it's a real problem. We've had so many problems in shipping and that in the past. So I actually dealt with a safety equipment manufacturer down in the States and had sent them 2 parachutes for repair and a set of gloves. And 3 months later, I was begging for my products back. And finally, they said, yes, we will send you your parachute and your gloves. And I said, well, actually, it was 2 parachutes. And I said to Kathy, you know, if there's anything we could do to get something on this side of the border to help the Canadian racers, we should. And it's grown into a full-blown, full-fledged business today.
Tell us about the products that you guys put out with Elite Belts.
Well, we've actually designed, I believe it's 14 different products. We've designed them all ourselves. They're all one-off. Every component is custom built, from window nets to seatbelt harnesses, 5-point, 6-point, 7-point, all sorts of different mechanisms to tie cars down to trailers, towing, all that sort of thing. We also do wheelie bar nets. Elite Belts has also sponsored Door Wars Pro Mod coverage for Speed Zone the last 5 years. People are more than welcome to look at our site, Elite Belts Calgary. We also have a Facebook, Elite Belts. All our products and pricing are on those. If anyone wants to take a look, please do.
So let's get back into your personal Pro Mod program. Tell us more about 2019. It started really positive. You came to Door Wars really excited about what was going to be happening. Things didn't quite go as planned.
Yeah, Keith, that's a bit of an understatement. They certainly didn't go as planned. As with everybody, you know, we tear our car completely down over the winter months and freshened a bunch of things, bought some new products and changed the powertrain in it. We were pretty excited to come out and run some numbers that we've been hoping to run. Just to back up one step here, I used to run a Mellery ignition. And when you set your rev limiters for the burnout and launch and even through the top end, the old stuff, it would start dropping cylinders 400 or 500, 600 RPM before you wanted them to. And with nitrous, you just can't have that. So as I upgraded my ignition systems, I run an MSD grid now. All those top end limiters, I buried them. They're like 10,000, 12,000 RPM. Like my car's never going to break. I'm never going to have to use that stuff. So anyhow, our very first pass, I did a burnout. I backed up. I staged the car, got the flash, let the button go. And the thing went up to, well, it was almost 10,000 RPM. The Bruno input shaft broke. And unfortunately, with it breaking, it took out components all through the drivetrain. My transmission got hurt, rear end got hurt, and the motor buzzed. So my brand new rods and all the rest, of course, had to come out of the engine because a lot of excessive RPM. We got to do a burnout. We never got to make a pass, and we got to go home and spend a bunch of money.
The repairs got done. You came back, and you still didn't get a full weekend in, Tom. This is when the year got really hard for your family. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what happened after that?
Well, yeah, we got the engine all back together and the drivetrain all back together. And I think a lot of the fellow racers know that my mom's health wasn't the best. It was kind of fun. The Monday before that event, I was down in Lethbridge. My mom lived in Lethbridge, and I was down there with her. I opted to stay with her, and she said, "You go racing." So we went racing with her blessing. We had made all of the qualifiers. I was qualified number 3. We got a phone call Saturday evening that my mom's health had deteriorated to the point where I had to get back to Lethbridge. Believe it or not, Keith, on a long weekend with a truck and a trailer, I made it from Mission to Calgary, and I think it was just under 10 hours, and then got down to Lethbridge, and I got to spend some time with my mom. So that was pretty special.
And eventually your mom did end up passing shortly thereafter, is that correct?
She did the next day.
Well, we were all praying for you when that happened, Tom. When you had to leave the racetrack, we had a lot of people in prayer for you, and we were glad to see that you were able to spend some time with her before her passing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
So if we get racing here in 2020, or whenever we get racing, what's coming from the Mehedin racing team?
Well, believe it or not, what little data we did get last year, because I think we ended up getting 10 full passes, and even that weekend that we had to come home early. Kathy and I went out to Charlie Buck here in January, to Charlie Buck Engines, and spent some time there. With his guidance, we've made more changes to the engine, actually changed some gearing in the car, changed the torque converter in the car. We're excited to come out again, and hopefully we can run even quicker and faster than we did before.
So in all the years of racing, there's got to be a lot of people that you can think of that you want to bring up to thank or to mention. A lot of memories in all these years. What stands out to you, or who stands out to you as somebody you want to thank?
Oh, gee, Keith, there's been a lot of people that have been behind us, but there's been a couple that have really been behind us. Mike Thorpe, couldn't do it without Mike Thorpe. Really good friend, fellow racer, smartest guy I know. So I'd like to send a big thanks out to Mike Thorpe. Dale Rogan, he's been with us the last few years. Super guy, super smart. Couldn't do it without him. Boys, all the boys at RH Race Cars, Ryan, Tyson, Chris, all the boys at RH Race Cars, they've been in our corner. And again, couldn't do it without them. Can't thank them enough. Kathy and I would also like to thank Vern Mills, along with Dave and Vicky Stroll. Their friendship and expertise has been a huge benefit to our racing program. All
right. And I always seem to see some pretty little lady hanging around your pit area helping you out. She tends to be one of your bigger supporters too, isn't she?
Kath does everything, Keith. She is part of the deal. She is the deal. A lot of people maybe don't know this, but Kath does everything on the car. I'm the guy that, when the banana hits you, you pull the gear. But she pulls the motor apart. She does absolutely everything. Downloads the computer, the nitrous tune-up, everything she does. When we come home, I'm the diver underneath the car. She's on top, pulling the heads, pulling the pistons out. Get your hands pretty dirty.
Yeah, I gotta say, Tom, when I first started working with the Pro Mod crowd, Kathy was one of my biggest supporters, and you yourself as well. I've definitely enjoyed working with the Mehedin racing team, and look forward to doing far more of it in the future.
Well, thanks, Keith. I appreciate that also.
All right, Tom. Well, thanks for spending some time with us, chatting with the chap. We'll see you when we finally get racing here, either in 2020 or later on in next year, or whenever we see you.
Great. Thanks a bunch, Keith. And Keith, thanks for everything you do for us, too. We appreciate it.
Well, before we get started in our last portion of the podcast, I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us. I want to thank our guests, Tom Mehedin, Dave Kowalski, Mike with Mojo Media, and Kevin Ness with Mission Raceway. Also want to thank all of our sponsors who have supported us so far in the 2020 season: Erlacher Motorsports, Daco Ventures, Mojo Media, Forward Promotional, and Haney Vape Shop. Join us again next time when we welcome another Pro Boost racer, another Pro Nitrous racer, another sponsor, and another track representative here on the West Coast Pro Modifieds Chatting with the Chap podcast. If you'd like to be part of the podcast, either as a sponsor or a guest, get in touch with me at westcoastpromodifieds@gmail.com or message me on Facebook. Now let's spend a little time with the chaplain. All right, right, everybody, this is the time of the podcast when I know some of you are going to be leaving us. This is the time for the chaplain to come on and give a little word from the good book. Maybe pray for a few racers, pray for a few people that are on our hearts. So if you're one of the ones leaving us, thank you again for joining us, getting ready for this podcast. Obviously, we've got the coronavirus at the forefront in our minds right now. And a verse that's definitely come to mind for me lately has been Isaiah 12:2. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. For the Lord God is my strength and my song, and has become my salvation. That's Isaiah 12:2. Friends, we've got some racers out there who are struggling with health issues. I've been talking to a number of different people. So we obviously want to lift them up to the Lord in prayer here today. We also want to be praying for people's businesses, praying for people's families, that people would stay safe in and amongst this coronavirus. And wouldn't we all just love to get back racing again? Pray for that as well. It says in James 5, is anyone among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anyone cheerful? Let him sing praise. Is anyone among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the church. Let them pray over you, anointing you with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith will save the one who is sick, and the Lord will raise him up. Friends, if any of you are out there and need prayer, don't hesitate to call me. Don't hesitate to message me. On the next podcast, if you're willing, we can share that prayer request and get the prayer chain going. We all need prayer. That's one of the reasons why I come to the racetrack. I love doing what I do and working with the pro mod racers, but as a chaplain, it means more to me to be able to pray with the racers and to be there and guide them through these sorts of times than it ever would watching somebody go into the winner's circle. So I'd like to do that right now. I'd like to lead us all in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I just first off want to thank you for each and every guest we had on our podcast today. I just pray that you would bless them, and I just thank you for their sharing. Father, I pray that you would give them good health. Father, I do pray for their businesses. You would bring people through their doors or keep the phones ringing in this tough time and tough economy. Father, I pray for those racers and crews who are just chomping at the bit, wanting to get back racing. I thank you for their enthusiasm and their passion for the sport. I just pray that as we slow ourselves down through this time, that we trust in you. We thank you for being our protector. We thank you for being the one who is in control. Father, through all this, we trust you. Father, I lift each and every racer up to you, each and every fan up to you. Father, keep them safe. Father, I pray for the businesses that are struggling. I pray for those who are out of work. I pray that you would provide for their families' needs. Father, for those people who are essential workers, I pray for safety as they go to work each and every day, that you would keep them safe from this virus and keep them out of harm's way. Father, in all of this, I pray that you would use those of us who are believers to share your word amongst those who do not know you. Father, I just pray that through this, they would come to know you. Father, I pray if there are people out there who have prayer requests, that they would reach out to a brother or sister. Father, it says in your word in Acts that when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived that they were uneducated, common men, they were astonished, and they knew that they had been with Jesus. Father, each and every one of us are just mere men and women, but Father, we can all pray to you. Father, for those who just want to reach out in prayer, I pray that they would have the courage to do that. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, thank you for joining us on Chatting with the Chap. Look forward to being with you next time with some more guests. Stay away from that coronavirus. Be safe, everybody. Until then, just keep sending it.